Welcome to episode 3 of Down to Earth. Pleased to be joined by Jeff Marek, as this episode is sponsored by our very good friends at HeadsUpGuys, a world's leading resource for supporting men's mental health, preventing suicide, and offering tools and tailored strategies for men, self-check tools, self-guided courses, tips and information to manage one's mental health, a bunch of recovery stories, and also some tips and information to help someone else manage their mental health. A lot of good stuff there with Heads Up Guys. Head on over to headsupguys.org for more. Really excited to bring in this man who really needs zero introduction. Someone that I've known for a number of years now. Someone that has done everything when it comes to broadcasting and hockey. Current teammate of mine, former teammate of mine as well, here at the Nation Network. Host of The Sheet. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Marek.
Irf, it is a pleasure, and I want to begin this interview and this conversation with you by apologizing for my hair. You know, it's the end of the week. It's Friday. It hasn't just been a long week. It's been a long life. And this is where I'm at right now. I apologize for the loaf on my head. Man, this looks bad.
Well, you look great. And we'll hope that your
Bless
answers...
Bless you.
There we go. There's so many different ways I want to go in this conversation with you. But I want to start right off the top.
Okay.
Off the top rope, if you will.
Oh, we're going wrestling.
Yes, live audio wrestling.
Sure.
I assume it was a passion, and did you ever think it would go further than it did?
I never thought, Irf, I never thought any of this was going to go farther than it did. This was a very accidental career. I'm the wrong person to talk to about career advice because I have an accidental career. I never intended to do this. I was doing my degree at the University of Guelph. I wanted to, go on and do a PhD and be a tenured prof and walk the groves of academe. And instead, I took a summer job at the Fan 590 in Toronto. I think it was then 1430. And then just sort of climbed the ladder from there. And I kept saying, I'll go back to school. Irf, I never went back to school. Everything was accidental. And I'm not a goal setter. I've never set a goal in my life. And I'm not about to now. I've just tried to approach every day as authentically and work as hard as I can and see where it gets me. And it got me on this evening, a conversation with you. But the live audio wrestling show was a special one. That was a lot of fun. It did come out of a hobby. It was a show before I got there. Hosted by Donnie Abreu and Chris Tidwell. I was working as a program director for Canada's first online radio station, Virtually Canadian. Don't look for it, is no longer there. And essentially it was my job, along with a couple of colleagues, to source programming, and that was one of the shows we came up with. But started in 94, and I think live audio wrestling would have started probably in 97. I want to say. And it was, stop me if you've heard this format before. It was a live show that was recorded and then posted up on the internet. I forget the word we have for those things. Pod something, I believe.
Yes, that's exactly where we are. Fast forward all these years later, Jeff, and we're right back to where we started.
And I'm back to what I did at the beginning of my career.
Full circle.
So awesome. And I do it from my basement. It's so awesome. Graduated to my basement. Well done, Marek.
Absolutely. Jeff, those that know you, know your story, being adopted. And, I don't want to get into that too much, but you're a father now.
We can. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of what's that been like for you and watching your kids grow up and have the family also, with the adoption and things like that?
So a couple of things. One, I was adopted, not at birth, but a week after I was born. My birth name was Keegan Sean Laughlin, and then after I was adopted, it was changed to Jeffrey James Marek. I do have a relationship with my birth mom. My adopted mother passed away when I was 16 years old, and my entire young life, she would always tell me, even if you don't want to have a relationship with your mom, try to find her through Children's Aid. Just to let her know that you're okay, just to give her that peace of mind and sort of mental tranquility. That her firstborn child that she made an adoption plan for is okay. And I did that when I was old enough. Children's Aid, the birth mom can apply. This is the way it used to be. I don't know what it is now. The birth mom could apply for contact at birth, but the child couldn't apply for contact until he or she was 18. So I waited till I was 18. Always remember what my mother said, and did that. And we exchanged letters. And she lives in Montreal with her beautiful family, and I traveled there a number of times. My family still goes there on a consistent basis. She comes here all the time with her family, so it's a really nice relationship. As far as being a dad, there's I have two boys. Who are at right now 14 and 12, or if you want me to sound like a douchebag hockey dad, I'll tell you, I got 2010 to 2012.
Please don't say that.
Sorry, yeah, I know. Listen, you know what the weird thing? You know what the weird thing is, Irf? The kids do that.
I know.
Like both my sons will talk about kids. I'm like, how old is he? Oh, he's a 2013. Quick math. The kids talk about like this, like that.
Exactly.
And then so two boys biologically, and then both my wife and I have always wanted to adopt. I've wanted to adopt, maybe because it closes a loop for me. I don't know. But we adopted a girl a number of years ago, and she is now 8 years old. So family's complete. That's it. And a German Shepherd dog. And it's impossible. Like, it's impossible it's impossible to have a family and not have it affect you profoundly and change every outlook that you have on life and all of your ideas. I can't remember, might have been, was I almost to Harrison Price and we were talking about this? We were talking about, and I understand it, I never understood it before, but when I became a father, I understood it. We were talking about how the NHL, going back to the 60s and 70s and even in the 80s, was a really violent game, and almost seemed like there kind of was a rule book, but nobody really looked at it. Whereas now there's a premium put on safety, not just on the ice, but off the ice, taking care of athletes, taking care of players. And the point that I believe about that, and is a parental point, and that is, you look at how many second generation players there are in the NHL, and how many people of influence there are in the NHL at various levels, team level, league level as well, who have kids that are playing either in the NHL or American League or Europe or across college programs, junior hockey. It's a natural instinct to try to make your child's environment safe, as safe as possible for them. So, and again, I'm basing this on nothing empirical, just kind of how I feel. But I wonder if part of the reason why there's more of a march towards making hockey safer, because there are so many people in hockey that have kids that are involved in hockey at a really high level.
No, absolutely. With what you said, it's kind of the road that I want to go down a little bit. You mentioned mental tranquility, and that's kind of the basis of why I do these interviews and why I want to have these subjects. The motto, and I told you when we were texting before we do this, is great conversations with greater guests. So you are the greater guest here, Jeff.
Geez.
And, I think the one thing is...
I have you fooled, Irf.
Well, you mentioned accidental career, but you need to be versatile in this business. That's something that I was taught at a very young age as well. If you want to be doing anything at some point, what was your mindset? And I guess the way that your work ethic went when you've had to do so many different things, whether it was, the wrestling show or whether it was hosting hockey games, or whether it was doing CHL stuff, or whether it was podcasting now. Where did kind of your mindset come into play in all of that?
I would do everything the exact same way, because I kind of approach everything from the same perspective, and that is curiosity. Like, that's it. Like, if I were doing football, or if I were doing baseball, or if I was, an English prof, like I had dreams to be once upon a time, the basis of it would be curiosity. But the other thing that I really try to impress on people when I talk to them, when I talk at various broadcast colleges, is don't let the cement harden around your ideas. Like, to your point, like, try to be fluid with your ideas. Like, give me 1 second here. So in front of me on my desk, and this, wherever I go, I always place this. I'm not sure if you can see this.
Yep.
But this is a couple of kanji characters. And it's an old Taoist saying, which is unlearn something daily. I think the full statement is the man of the Tao, or the man of the university learns something daily. The man of the Tao unlearns something daily. And I've always remembered that. And it sort of flies in the same spirit of don't let cement hardened around your ideas. Like always, treat any information you have not as a final destination, but as a temporary staging point. Don't get too hardened around any ideas or concepts you may have. I think between that and being genuinely curious, like I'm still curious about hockey. I'm still curious about broadcasting. I'm still curious about a lot of things. And the idea of never making your mind up completely about something, I think is probably serves you best as a mindset when you're getting involved in media, for example.
No, absolutely. And I think that as we continue this conversation, and mindset is definitely going to be in it, I want to just, talk about a player that took a leave recently, and that's JT Miller, obviously, a personal leave. Bit of a unique situation because there's a lot of vagueness surrounding it. Obviously, let me be the first and foremost. We hope JT gets better and returns to playing at a high level. But my question to you, Jeff, would now be, as we see this more and more, where players aren't stepping away from the game because they're going into the NHL program where it's substance abuse and things of that nature, where they're just stepping away from the game because they need to for themselves. How much of that is now kind of new and will be brought to the forefront as we continue and grow and learn about mental health?
With you on JT Miller, hope the best for him. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really care if he comes back and plays hockey as long as he's okay. If that means that he doesn't ever play hockey again, but he's healthy and his family's healthy, then great. But I will say one thing. To me, it is really encouraging that it is someone like JT Miller who has taken this step away. JT Miller's a tough hockey player. Like JT Miller, how many teams around the NHL would love to have either JT Miller or someone exactly like him? Mm-hmm. All of them, right? Like he's play it any way you want. He's really tough. He doesn't cheat the game. He'll fight if he has to. He's a physical player. He's a highly skilled player. He's a great two-way player. Like he's like the envy of a lot of teams and a lot of fans as well. And he's a tough guy, right? Like that's JT Miller. When you look at JT Miller, you say he plays a tough game, and JT Miller is strong enough to walk away from it. That decision wasn't made easily or lightly, and I think it's a really brave decision. I'll tell you what, Irv, given the pressures that are on high performance athletes, and I know I'm going to hear the argument, well, that's what the money's for, and suck it up, and blah blah blah. Poppycock. I'm surprised that this doesn't happen more often. And now maybe it will. Maybe players will say, look, man, if JT Miller can do this, I'm hurting too, and I need to take a pause, and I need a break. I need to get myself right here. I need to take care of me. If JT Miller can do it, then certainly I can do it. I think this is not just a great thing for JT Miller, and we all hope that he comes out the other side healthier than before, but I think it's a great example for other people around the NHL and around the entire sporting world. I mean, I was saying this on Sekeres and Price on the most recent podcast. The NHL is a workplace, okay? Think about our workplace, Irv. Mm-hmm. Think about any places that we've either been together or we've worked at separately, other workplaces. We've all been in different workplaces. This happens all the time. This person needed to take personal leave or a stress leave or a mental break. They'll be back in a couple of weeks, and everyone says, well, we hope the best for them. It doesn't happen on the ice with players by and large, but it probably should. 750, 800 players in the NHL, and one has stepped away because they need it. That there's other players that could use it. Other players that are struggling out there. So I am really surprised if we look at the NHL just as a normal workplace. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often because it happens in every other area of life and every other workplace, every other office.
It's mentioned you bring that up because the next word I want to use when describing this is culture. and identity and what that is. You mentioned culture in workplaces, in different places where we've both worked at, and I'm assuming a lot of other people as well. But culture in the NHL is a thing. That's a word that is harped in, and if a team doesn't have the right culture, then they don't have the right identity. If the team doesn't have the right identity, they don't have the right culture, and they're not going to win a Stanley Cup. With what we know about players wanting to take care of themselves and mental health and the way it's kind of being brought into the forefront, how much will that culture word change? Or do you think there will still be people, players, executives in the league that'll still maybe hold themselves back a little bit, even if something's going on?
There still will be.
Yeah.
As much as the sport has lurched forward and is much more understanding. And make no mistake about it, this has been all ushered in by the younger demographic in the NHL, right? Like this is like there's still like a lot of old school, not just old school IRF, but guys that were from the school they burned down to build the old school that are still around. And their idea with everything is if you're injured, rub some dirt on it and get back in there. Take some smelling salts and get back on the ice. Suck it up, just get out there. Like that mentality amongst some still exists. But given the realities of what we know now, specifically about mental health and watching teammates go through it, colleagues go through it, other people around the league go through it. I think there's a greater understanding. There's been a lot of great work, and the NHL has done this as well. We do have to nod to the National Hockey League here, who has more time and more concert for these things. I think it's a much more enabling culture right now, or it's much more of a culture that doesn't look down on someone like JT Miller as if taking a leave is a sign of weakness. Because to my point earlier, for JT Miller or for any athlete, that's a really strong thing to do. I mean, how many times have you heard, or if the strongest thing you can do is be quote unquote weak, or take a step away, or take a pause, or say, you know what, I need to sit in the back seat on this ride. I don't need hands on the wheel right now. I just need to take a step away. So I do see, and this is true in any sport and in any environment right now in North America, there is much greater of an understanding of what people are going through and how real their mental struggles are. I think that's a great thing. I think we're all on the same page about that. But yeah, there still is a little bit of a tug from the old school that sort of sneer at it. But those, the dinosaurs are dying each day, Irf, and I think it's a better league because of it.
You are very tapped in the junior hockey world and the CHL and things like that. Yes, but I think that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because there's so much talk about what we do and what we know that's at NHL levels, but in reality, the future of the hockey is at that junior level. So how much is being taught? How much is being educated? Do these kids know about what you can and can't do? And as they approach their time to make it to the National Hockey League?
More resources than ever for athletes around the CHL. And one thing that I want to mention specifically, and Camille Quenville, who's the COO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, she helped put together a program that all hockey players have access to. What is called the Talk Today program. Growing up, I never thought that we'd see anything like this. I didn't even think about this before. Many of us never did. There have been a number of tragedies across junior hockey with players that have struggled with their mental health, and some have met a horrible fate because of it. But now, every team, every league, the entire CHL provides resources for kids that do find themselves struggling. Like when you talk about, the stresses and the pressures, there are ones that pro athletes go through, certainly. And then there's a whole different area of pressures that junior hockey kids are under. Just consider, just consider the nature of, at a young age, 16 years old, moving to another town.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the first time you've never slept in your own bed in your life. And all of a sudden you pull up stakes and you're at a billet's house and you're living in the basement, and maybe you like them and maybe you don't, and you really miss your family, and it's tough to, never mind get to the rink, but it's tough to get out of bed because there's a completely different and artificial rhythm in your life. All of us, like, that weighs heavy on you, to say nothing of the stresses of that performance. Like, the CHL is an elite league, man, and there's a lot of high performance athletes and a lot of alpha males, and big dog this and big dog that. There's a lot of stresses that come along to climb the ladder, get to the next level. Never mind getting to the any of the CHL leagues, the Western League, the Ontario League, or the Quebec League. Never mind the stresses of getting there, but when you are there, keeping your spots. Getting to the next level, getting drafted into the NHL, turning pro, all of that. And you have to imagine, like, if you didn't have these programs, like the Talk Today program, having to handle that all on your own when potentially you're thousands of miles away from home.
Yeah.
Like, and you're between the ages generally of 16 to 19. Like, just think about, because I know what I was like when I was 16, 17, 18,
Same,
19,
yeah.
right? Irf, what were you like when you were 16? Like, to me, it's remarkable that kids are able to pull themselves together and get through a junior hockey career. I don't think I would have been mature enough to do it. I don't know that I was, mentally strong enough to do it. I'll tell you a story. So I a couple of weeks ago, my oldest son was at a tournament in Erie. And it was the Erie Otters were playing on the Saturday night, and I really wanted to go see a couple of players, Matthew Spence Malcolm Spence and Matthew Schaefer. And Matthew Schaefer, I feel a sort of natural affinity to. I lost my mom when I was 16 years old. Last year, Matthew Schaefer lost his birth mom and his billet mom. At the age of 16, and through a lot of off-ice work and programs and assistance, not just from the Erie Otters organization, but the entire OHL, and a lot of friends in the Ontario Hockey League, certainly, and the support that was provided for him. You still grieve, and you grieve your whole life, but it didn't stop Matthew Schaefer one bit. And so I haven't met him before. And I really wanted to meet him. And Stan Butler is a coach of the team, and I've known Stan for a long time. And I said, look, like, after the game, do you mind if I have a couple of words with Matthew Schaefer? And he said, well, listen, why don't you, because my kid was there, and he brought one of his buddies, said, listen, well, I'll introduce you to Malcolm Spence and Matthew Schaefer, and come down. They'll give you a tour of the room. And I spent a couple of moments, like 5 or 6 minutes, just talking to, because Matthew was wide open about this, like a really, really mature kid. Like, he's one of these kids where, if, like, when you get to know him, you can't help but, like, cheer for this guy. Like, he's going to be a top 3 pick in the NHL draft next year. I hope he goes number 1. That's what he deserves. The skill set is incredible. I haven't seen anyone skate like this since Jay Bouwmeester. And Irf, when you see him, if you haven't already, and you just watch him skate, you're going to be like, wow, Jay Bouwmeester's back on the ice. This is really incredible. But one of these kids that really seems to have it all together. And I think a lot of it is because when he went through that hardship last year, losing his mom and his billet mom, he had a support staff around him, not just his friends and family, but his team and an entire league, helped him from going to dark places and held him up. I don't know whether that would have been true in years past, but I really do think it's a testament to the league and to the CHL and all of his teammates, and to Matthew Schaefer himself, who's just a really mature, sensitive, thoughtful kid. I have all the time in the world for Schaefer, and I want nothing but good things to happen to him and his family. Because, listen, when my mom died, I quit hockey. That was it for me, Irf. That was it. I was done. I gave up on all of it. All the fun was out. The light was dimmed in my life. Like, that's what it felt like. But Matthew Schaefer never let his light go dim at all. I'm really proud of that young man.
What was that kind of moment like for you? Forget about Matthew Schaefer, but you, and seeing someone potentially, the kid's young, and you were young and had that, but what was that moment and those little moments like for you in that 5-10 minutes that you had?
Emotional, because right away you go back and like, listen, I'm a grown up. I'm supposed to be, the mature one in the conversation. Matthew Schaefer's way more mature than me. I was like, going back to when I was 16 years old, and my mom passed away from brain cancer, and watching it all sort of unfold, and Matthew had a similar story with his mom, and we were sharing stories, and I found that by the end, he was a lot more mentally strong than I was. He was more mature and seemed older than I was. But just when you think you've dealt with something, right? What's the old line? Like, you may be done with history, but history's not done with you. It's kind of like how I felt talking to Matthew about it, because I'm like, dude, I was you. I wasn't as good a hockey player as you are,
Yeah.
but what you went through, like I went through. And he said, yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out and tell me similar stories.
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we both hope the best for him, and hopefully we'll
Yeah.
be hearing his name very early in the draft. Let's move
Yeah.
forward a little bit, Jeff. Presenting hockey is kind of changing a little bit in what we do and the way that they do it. So you mentioned the dinosaurs, you mentioned the old guard, you mentioned the young kids. How do you present hockey, and how do we talk about hockey mirroring the old school and the new school? I saw the NHL put out a Gen Z commercial and all of that. I'm sure you saw it. But what do you think's the best way to go about and do that? Because you want to tell the stories of the young kids, but I feel like the old guys at the top and the people that are still in charge want to keep that integrity of the game.
What I loved about that spot was, and I think this is the way to make points now. Like, once upon a time, philosophers and politicians rule the day, and that's who we listen to. You know who we listen to now? Comedians. The best way to reach someone is through comedy these days, right? Whether it's George Carlin or back in the day, or Chris Rock. This is the way to reach people, and that's why I thought that spot was brilliant with Hughes and Bedard and Sidney Crosby shaking his head, kids today. I thought that was one of the most creative NHL spots that I've ever seen, because I mean, Earth, didn't it seem like 5 minutes ago that Sidney Crosby was being drafted? Right? Like, you can still remember, right? Coming out of the lockout, 2005, and then Sidney Crosby. Okay. I thought that was brilliant, and I think the reason that the whole thing worked was it was playing off of that old versus young. This is what people say about our generation, and then at the end of it, Sid the Kid with the ultimate punchline. I always feel the best way to get the best way to get something out of a guest, at least for me, is choosing conversation instead of confrontation. And I think the best way now to prove a point is through humor. Humor now in our culture more, maybe it's just because we've all been through so much, that humor is more necessary than ever before. But it seems to me like the best way to get points across now is to kind of have a joke or a laugh along with it.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we all should do. I mean, really, we're covering hockey here. It's not the end of the world. It's wins and losses and things like that. But in order to tell a story and things like that, cracking a joke is obviously fun. All right, here's one for you. What do you like most about the game as it currently stands, and what do you hate about it? You can pick which one you want to do first.
What I like most about the game right now are the people that are in it, specifically the young people that are in it, and specifically the women that are in it. I grew up as a kid in southwestern Ontario watching the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres, and grew up wanting to play, wanting to be as good as the French Connection in Buffalo, or skate like Borje Salming, or make saves like Mike Palmateer, right? Like, those were my dreams. And it wasn't until, and I was playing in the MTHL, that a girl then, woman now obviously, and she's a wonderful chiropractor in Brampton, by the name of Justine Blaney, really made headlines by making a Scarborough team. It was called Scarborough EastEnders, and there was a big to-do about a girl playing in the quote-unquote boys league of the MTHL. Justine Blaney earned a spot on the team. Justine Blaney deserved to be on that team. The outcry was immense. It split dressing rooms. I remember my parents sitting me down, Irf, and saying, if she made the team, she can be on the team. It doesn't matter if she's a boy or a girl. And I've always, grown up with the idea, like, male, female, animal, vegetable, like whatever. If it makes the team, then you're on the team. I had very forward-thinking parents, thankfully. Justine Blaney, took this all the way up to the Supreme Court of Ontario and fought this and won. It was a real trailblazer. But that was the first time that I began to wonder what kind of hockey dreams girls have. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I just blind, like horse blinders, right? Or if you just think like, my hockey dreams are so cool. I'm watching Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night and I want to be like this guy and that guy. And you never think about like girls that are watching hockey saying, we want to have the same hockey dreams. We just don't have a place to direct that attention or that adoration for the sport. And now they do with the PWHL, which, does it have its flaws? Yeah. But still, like at least now, there's the beginnings of us being able to answer the question, how good can women be at the sport? Because we still don't know, because they haven't been full-time hockey players forever. And now we're starting to see the beginnings of that. And two, listen, young girls can have hockey dreams, just like boys can. That's what I really like about the sport right now.
What don't you like about the sport right now?
I'm gonna go back to part of that question. I'm gonna go back to girls hockey again. The fact that people like guys, okay? I'm talking about guys here. What I don't like is that guys don't understand that if more girls pick up hockey sticks, or women who are in their 30s who always thought about it but never were too shy to even try it, pick up a stick and join a learn to play program, everybody benefits. Mm-hmm. Like, I had a conversation recently with Catherine Henderson, the new head of Hockey Canada. She's a fantastic, inspiring woman. And it sounds very much like she's going to be a great leader for Hockey Canada at a very tumultuous time. But one of the things we were talking about is, there is still on the boys' side, there is still some growth. I think it's like 5% growth in enrollment. On the girls' side, it's like 16% growth. And we're seeing this each and every year. But here's the thing that I really wish that more people would understand. And by that, I mean more guys would understand. If we don't make more accommodations for women in the sport, our sport is going to dwindle. Girls and women represent the biggest potential for growth in hockey in Canada, period, full stop. And what happens is if we encourage more girls to play hockey, what's going to happen? Simple supply-demand economics. We're going to get more rinks. We're going to get stronger hockey manufacturers. We're going to get more trainers. As more people enter the hockey ecosystem, the entire thing will grow. Who will that benefit? Everybody, including the guys. Mm-hmm. More ice time, more sheets, all of it. That means cheaper ice time prices, folks. That is the big expense in hockey, is the cost of ice. I know that equipment is expensive too, but man, is ice ever expensive, especially at primetime hours. I just wish more people would understand that if more girls play, everybody will benefit from it, even the guys.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Your show, The Sheet.
Yeah.
Without giving away, finally we get to it. Without giving away too much, Jeff, what can we expect?
I remember I was a big Tom Waits fan, still am, and one of his great quotes was, I have this nightmare that I'm tapping the world on its shoulder my entire life, and when it finally turns around, I forget what I was going to say. So the day is coming, December 2nd, the show will debut. On our DFO YouTube page. It'll be live at 3 o'clock Eastern, Monday to Friday. And then it'll be available wherever you get your podcasts, your Apple Pods, and your Spotifys, etc. The interesting thing about that I like about this one is I'm always sensitive to the time of day that I do a live show. I've done a lot of live shows at noon, and I know this show is 3 Eastern, so that's noon Pacific. But it's in a part of the day where you're kind of done talking about last night, unless there's a major issue, and we'll get to that in a couple of seconds. And you're just starting to think about, okay, what's on the docket later on this evening? So it's that sweet spot of the day where you can figure out what's the power topic of the day. Coming out of last night, previewing what's going to happen, and all the conversations around it, I was talking to my producer about this a couple of days ago. It's our job to figure out what the power topic of the day is, and that becomes the focus of that show. Like it's going to be guests and guest co-hosts, etc. And like a more goofy crap from me, to be honest, just to be blunt, more goofy crap from me that I find amusing, and hopefully our listeners and viewers do as well. But I think the goal of the show is to try to, figure out what the power topic of the day is and go as deep as we possibly can on that. So December 2nd, the sheet. What do you think of the name, by the way, Irf? When you hear the sheet, do you think sheet of ice or score sheet / game sheet?
So I thought sheet of ice originally.
Yeah.
I thought about it more, and then I thought, okay, I can see you, Jeff, with your suit or whatever it is, pulling out the sheet, writing it down, right on your card there, what's going on, what you want to have in your show, things like that. But it works. It works on so many different levels.
Show sheet, game sheet, score sheet, ice sheet, sheet heads. Someone said you should call your listeners sheet heads. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go that far.
Yeah, there's a thought about what the people should call their Seattle Kraken fans very early before, and then they got their names. But we can live to.
I'm surprised it didn't stick. I was surprised that one didn't stick.
I'm shocked it didn't stick. But when you had two kind of previews to your show, and one of them you did a little bit of Hockey Jeopardy. So because we're here, I like to do a little more fun stuff. So I've got a couple Hockey Jeopardy questions for you.
Okay.
A guy that knows a lot and is that. So this player, we'll start with this one. This player was drafted 5th overall and played for 9 NHL teams.
5th overall and played for 9 NHL teams? It wasn't Mike Sillinger, was it? He wasn't drafted 5th overall.
No.
Was it Curtis Lesishin?
No.
Who was it? 5th overall, 9 NHL teams. Who was it?
Okay, we'll give it to you. Jaromir Jagr.
Oh my God, how could I miss that? You want to hear a great Jagr story? Oh my God, because
Yes.
that's right, he went mercenary at the end of the career. So Brian Burke told me this story. Of course, Jagr. That was a 1990 draft. Oh, by the way, okay, so there is one person still on the ice from the 1990 draft. Who is it? That was the year that Jagr was drafted too, by the way. Owen Nolan went 1st overall. One person still on the ice in the NHL.
Oh.
From the 1990 draft, bud.
I don't even know.
Trick question. Wes McCauley, the referee.
There you go.
Wow. But Brian Burke told me this question. Told me this one about Jagr. He said when they were doing the interview with him before, one of the interview questions that Brian always asks is, how many times have you been a captain on your team? And Jagr replied, none. And so Ricky and all the guys, poor leadership skills, alienated from the team, never a leader, can't lead. And then Jagr paused and said, because I was always playing 2 or 3 years up. I never played with my own peer group. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense then.
He was that good.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was, like, honestly, I mean, all the stories you hear about Jagr are true. I mean, the strength, the skill, all of it. There was that weird time. in Jagr's career with the Washington Capitals where it almost felt like Jagr was lost, right? Like, remember, like, he wouldn't even do, like, line rushers in the pregame, like, with the team. Like, it was just, again, people go through it at their work. People go through it all the time. But there was that awkward period where it's like, yeah, that's Jagr, but it's really not Jagr. But he's one of the guys. I was just glad that they finally got their act together in Pittsburgh and retired the number. I was really happy about that. And you know what? Kudos to Phil Bourque, who brokered that, because there was a real chill with Jagr and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Phil Bourque, the old 2-9er, was the one that brokered the deal, that played statesman, that played middleman to all of it. So kudos to Phil Bourque for pulling that one together.
Kind of like Pavel Bure here in Vancouver a little bit.
Next
question.
Hang on. Can I pause on that? Do you think we talk about Pavel Bure enough, or has he kind of been forgotten in history?
No.
Because we forget about, like,
player
how great, how, like, explosive he was. bring you out of your seat. You know, we always talk about like how many hockey players would you pay your own money just to go and watch? Like say I would. You pay to watch Ovechkin, you pay to watch Crosby, you pay to watch McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, etc. Like at that time, I don't know that there was anyone more electric that you would pay just to watch that neutral zone burst and hit that gear. I don't know, man. I'm with you, Irf. Like Bure was one of my favorites. A lot of people as well. I just don't know that we talk about Bure enough. Maybe because the career was cut short, but as a peak performer, God was he good. God, was he good. Man, was he good.
All right, let's get to our next one here. This player won the Art Ross Trophy at the age of 37, becoming the eldest player to do so. Who's the player?
Was it Stan Mikita?
No.
The Art Ross Trophy at 30.
A lot more recent than Stan Mikita.
God, I'm terrible at trivia. Honestly, I really am. Like I don't have a brain for trivia. 37. Give me a hint.
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, Marty St. Louis.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down next to Marty St. Louis at Team Canada orientation camp. Remember when Mike Babcock in Calgary had the guys do ball hockey before the Olympic tryouts? Remember that one? So Marty came up and sat on the set with us. And I thought that Sidney Crosby had the biggest legs I'd ever seen. I remember being in the Pittsburgh dressing room once, one of my first rink sides at Hockey Night in Canada. And thinking like, holy smokes, like look at am I the same species as Sidney Crosby? I thought those were the biggest hockey legs I'd ever seen until Marty St. Louis got on the set. And have you ever seen Marty St. Louis' quads? They were insane. And I'll give you another reason why I love Marty St. Louis. There was a Tampa-Ottawa series. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Mark Mathot, who caught St. Louis with a high stick in the face and cut him open, stitches along the nose, the whole deal. St. Louis went and got stitched up and then came back. And afterwards, he was being interviewed and he was being asked about that play. Did he think it was dirty? Should have been a penalty? Is there a suspension? And he cut the reporter off and he said, no, stop. Like, I play hard. This defenseman, I think it was Mark Mathot plays hard. Like, this is going to happen. Like, guys, this is hockey. Just because I got hurt doesn't mean that it was a bad play or an illegal play. That's okay. This is just hockey. Irf, you know how refreshing that is to hear? As opposed to, the NHL's got to crack down on this stick violence and I don't know, got to protect your athletes. And he's just like, guys, this is hockey. This is going to happen. I've got all the time in the world for Martin St. Louis. The other question that begs too is, who's the greatest Tampa Bay Lightning player of all time? See, for me, it's Marty St. Louis. Some will say Stamkos. Some might even say Hedman. But for me, it's Marty St. Louis.
Some might say Kucherov. I mean,
he's trending that way.
Yeah, it's trending that way. Not yet, but
you know what the thing about Kucherov is? He's kind of like Marian Hossa in one sense, and that is, he's the player that the hockey players marvel at. You know how you talk to any player that played with or against Marian Hossa, they'll always say, like, oh yeah, like the best player. Like, you know the old saying, you can't give a great player a bad pass? When did you ever see Marian Hossa fumble a pass? You could throw it in his skates. You could throw it behind him. He could take every single pass effortlessly. It was the most amazing thing. And players loved him. Big, strong, skilled, two-way guy. I know we don't like giving wingers the Selke Trophy, but Hossa should have won one of them. And I look at Kucherov and I say the same thing. Like, when you talk to players, they marvel. They marvel at what he's able to do, the way he's able to look guys off, the way that he's able to give like no one in the NHL, Irf, gives out more bad information than Nikita Kucherov. Like, I remember talking to Ryan Whitney once. We're talking about kids hockey, and he said, listen, always tell your kids, when they're out there on the ice, make sure they're giving out bad information. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, make sure that, when they want to make a pass one way, make sure they're looking the other way. When they want to shoot, make it look like they're going to pass. When they're going to pass, when they want to pass, make it look like they're going to shoot. Always be giving out bad information. When you watch Nikita Kucherov's game, do you not see a guy that is playing sleight of hand with everybody else and giving out bad information every single time he's on the ice. And I swear there's that one play where it's a hard pass to Kucherov. He's winding up for the one-timer, and he fires a hard pass to the slot to Braden Point. He's done it a million times, and every time I see it, it's like the first time because I bite on it. Like, I'm still biting on that play. Here comes the one. Oh, of course. There it is again. He got me. He's the guy that gets you more than anybody else in the NHL. God, Kucherov's good. God,
100%.
Second round pick, bud. Second round pick.
I know. You mentioned effortless. Jeff, you made this interview look effortless. Thank you so much for your time. Really looking forward to watching your show and
thanks, man.
All the success down the road in the future, my friend.
You got a great program and a really important program, Murph. Keep it up. Keep up the great work.